I'm going to share with you an experience I had personally in the winter of 1988. My father was a serious man, a hard-working man, an ex-Marine, and he grew up in an area with a handful of other families known as Fance Grove, and pastures and some hardwood hollows, some pines, and farming for the most part. The local university decided to buy up all that property, and they did. And all the families moved. Some of them moved away, and some of them stayed locally. My dad and his family moved to the next town over. My dad was the oldest of 10 kids. He had 6 brothers and 3 sisters. And the university leased that area of land out to the Department of Natural Resources, who began to manage the wildlife in the area, white-tailed deer, turkey, etc. And they allowed deer hunting in the month of December and archery only. So I was interested in this, so I became a deer hunter, archery specifically. So shortly after Thanksgiving of 1987, I informed my dad I was going to be deer hunting in the area he grew up. And I remember he paused. I would say somewhat of an awkward pause, and he leaned over with that 6'4" frame of his, and he cleared his voice. And he said, "You be careful down there in the grove." He said, "Son, there's things in those woods that'll sneak up behind you, that'll follow you, and I believe that they mean harm." Well, this took me by surprise, seeing how my dad was not known for a sense of humor. So I was confused. "Dad, what are you talking about?" He said, "Boy, you be careful down in the grove, and you watch out for the HideBehind. You be careful." Well, that was the end of the conversation, and I was slightly alarmed, but nonetheless, I pursued my deer hunting in the month of December, and it was uneventful to say the least. So the following year, December 28th in 1988, I found myself in the same little spot again to try my hand at bow hunting white-tailed deer. I was hunting near a spot that I'd hunted last year. It was called the Big Oaks. There was a number of large oak trees, and there was an old home place there that years and years and years before that, other than those large oak trees, there was no trace of that house ever being there. So as I began to walk my way in the pre-dawn hours through those cold, crisp winter leaves, you could hear the rhythm of my footsteps. Well, all of a sudden, there seemed to be an echo to my footsteps. Just a half step off, but an echo nonetheless. It caught my attention. So I paused gradually, come to a stop, and I remember one good additional step after I'd completely stopped. It got my attention. So I thought for a second, listened, and then I just went on about my way. Well, after 5 or 6 steps, I heard that same little half a step off rhythmic echo. So this time I stopped abruptly, and there was 3 clear additional steps after mine had stopped, and it was close. So I turned around and began to probe the woods with my flashlight, and I saw nothing. And when I had my mind satisfied, I went on, and again, 5, 6, 7 steps, the same little echo began, and I stopped abruptly this time and swung around with my flashlight because I heard those same additional steps. Something was definitely behind me. And all of a sudden, the conversation I'd had with my dad came flooding back to my memory, and I must be honest, my heart rate picked up. My breathing was slightly labored, and I was afraid. Well, I turned and I picked up my pace, headed to the spot I wanted to hunt. And that same little half-step echo, something was following me. I stopped abruptly again, turned around real fast with my flashlight. I didn't see anything, but I heard 3 additional steps after I'd stopped. So this time I laid some tracks down, so to speak, to get to the place I was hunting. And when I got to the tree I wanted to be at, I stood there till the sun was completely up and had illuminated the woods. And I had probed those trees in the woods a couple of times, yelling out, "Hello? Hello?" I never saw anything. But there's not a doubt in my mind something that morning was following me. And I've never had that happen before or since. And I'm 49 years old now. But I tell you that to say this. If you find yourself in the grove, in Fance Grove, you be careful. There's something in those woods that will sneak up behind you, that'll follow you, and in my heart of hearts, I believe means you harm. If you find yourself in the grove, you better watch out for the hide behind.